Everybody, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you taking your time out of your Thursday afternoon to join us. My name is Grant Walters. I currently serve as the GLACUHO Communications and Marketing Chair. I am also the editor of Trends News Magazine, which is our regional publication that we send out quarterly to all of you. And I also, in my spare time, work as a coordinator for President's Life at Miami University.
Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Rice. I'm the Assistant Director for Residence Life for Training and Development at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. And in addition to being a GLACUHO member for the past couple of years, for the past year I've had the excellent opportunity to serve on the GLACUHO Communications and Marketing Committee.
Hello, and I'm James Baumann. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing for ACUHO-I, and as part of my duties I oversee our 6 times a year magazine, The Talking Stick, the Journal of College and University Student Housing, and then also our online news blog as well. And I'm very happy to be here.
Well, once again, thanks everybody. We are presenting this webinar today. We presented a program last year at the annual conference when we were in Collinsville, Illinois. Lots of people were talking to our committee and letting us know that they really wanted to write for publication, but were sort of unsure of how to start. And we presented a program session at the conference and had good interactions with those individuals. And we had some requests to reprise some of that information during this webinar this year. And so today we're going to be spending some time talking a little bit about what it means to write for publication, some of the important elements to consider as you think about writing, and then some really GLACUHO and ACUHO-I specific information, talking about some of the opportunities and the criteria that each of our associations have for folks who write for publication. So we're going to start just by talking a little bit about the webinar goals. We really want to help our membership find their inner writer and identify the ways in which our regional publications and also the ones that published by ACUHO-I can be really great professional development opportunities. And that's really the focus of why we do Trends and why we solicit articles from our membership, is we want to ensure that people look at that as an ability to improve their skills, to pursue some interesting subjects or topics that they really are passionate about. And that's really what we want to accomplish by being able to do that. We also want to discuss the process of developing ideas for articles. Oftentimes we'll say to people or hear people tell us that they have an idea and they really want to see something published about a specific idea or a topic, but they're not really sure how to take that idea and make it interesting for publication or how to build an entire article around it. So James is actually going to be talking a little bit about how you can actually take an idea and refine it and build it into a story that is separate, right for publication. We want to talk about writing elements of a good article and what sort of things to look for and to think about as you compose an article that makes it interesting, that makes it captivating, and that makes it relevant to the publication that you're looking at. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means for GLACUHO and ACUHO-I as well. We also want to talk to you a little bit about our GLACUHO publication, Trends, and some of the criteria we use to manage content and to create that news magazine each time we turn out an issue. Later on in the presentation, we're actually going to have an opportunity. We would love to hear some brainstorming from the people who are in attendance. And you might be sitting individually or with a group of folks at your institution, but we would like to hear some of your ideas, either for something that you might be interested in writing about or something you would like to see in a future Trends or Talking Stick article. And then finally, we want to touch on our article submission process, our deadlines, and other relevant information that will sort of help you get started as well. So with that, we'll start out by talking about why it's important to write. And I will turn that over to Kyle, and she will start our webinar.
Great. Thanks, Grant. One of the great things about writing for publication is it's simultaneously a professional development opportunity for the writer and also an opportunity to contribute to the field in which we work. So it not only develops you, but it also gives back at the same time. Writing is helpful practice for folks that think that they might want to write in the future, be that if you're thinking someday that you might be writing books or journals or dissertations or other things like that. Writing is a good way to keep your writing skills up, keep in the practice of writing in a style that's publishable. Additionally, when you write for publication, you have a broad audience to share with, and it gives you the opportunity to bring things that you might be interested in or trends that you've been noticing on on your campuses to the forefront collectively and start a dialogue about things that are happening. Writing is a wonderful opportunity to share both opinions and perspectives that you have or things that you've been involved with that you want to share with membership so that other folks may pursue different things that you've found beneficial in your professional experience. Writing also gives us the opportunity to explore and research topics that may be an interest of us, but we may not be able to work with those different topics on the day-to-day basis. So maybe you're very passionate about one area, but you don't have an opportunity to interact with those topics in your day-to-day work, but you do want to do some more research. Writing an article at the end of that, it can be a nice way to culminate the research that you're doing on different topics. And lastly, it's a credibility builder. It gets your name out there, specifically tied with a topic that you're interested in, and can be a great resume builder for you. Writing for publication is also a great opportunity to co-author, potentially with a colleague that you want to work with, but don't have a reason to in your day-to-day work. So those are a couple of reasons to write. James is going to walk us through, once you've decided you want to write something, how do you develop an idea to do that?
Okay, thank you very much. Like you said, we're going to talk a little bit about how you take an idea and forming it into more of a pitch for an actual magazine article. You know, people often ask me, where do you come up with the ideas for all the articles that go in the talking stick? And I always say, well, they come from people like you. We have volunteers and committee members that we meet with on a regular basis to let us know what is happening in the world of college housing and what are some possible story ideas. The talking stick, we bill ourselves as the authoritative voice for authoritative resource for college housing. Well, everything I know about college housing, I learned from reading the talking stick. And that doesn't exactly work out that way. So we count on our volunteers to share ideas with us, but then we, the ACUHO-I staff, with our background in communications and magazine writing, we work with them to try and shape them into story ideas and refine them so that they fit within the format of our publication. As an example of that, I would say, refer back to a recent conference call that we had with our group where, again, we were asking what's been going on, what are some ideas, and it was thrown out that in the wake of the recent move-ins and all that was going on, the idea of using iPads as part of the check-in process might be an idea. And as we discussed it further, we said, well, that seems pretty specific. We might be able to talk about what a couple of campuses did, but then it sort of boils down to, they did it or they didn't do it. So we talked about it more, said, well, what are some other IT things that are changing the way you do your work? And that led to conversation about, this is happening on this campus, we heard about this is happening over here. And as the conversation grew, we sort of came to the realization, there's an awful lot happening in the world of IT that's affecting the way campus housing is done. Maybe we need to look at a more general article that would be sort of a primer for IT. So and again, thinking about the readers, we know that the IT professionals might not necessarily take a whole lot away from this article, but everybody else that reads the magazine that has to work with and communicate with those IT professionals, this would help get them up to speed and be prepared to have those conversations. Conversely, we've also had sessions where we are looking for story ideas, and a person will say, I want to write something about residential programming. Well, I believe there's entire graduate programs based around a topic that broad. So again, there we reversed the conversation and said, well, how can we focus that down? Let's be more specific. And at the end of our conversation, we came up with wanting to do an article about residential programming that taps into geek culture. Not Greek culture, but geek culture. So I'm very excited that the Talking Stick is going to have a story that mentions Phineas and Ferb. So, that's a great accomplishment for us. So, and that sort of boils down to knowing the magazine, knowing the publication type, and then finding an article that is appropriate for that magazine and that audience. And then I believe we'll pass that back on to Grant. He's going to talk a little bit about what makes a, quote, good article, unquote.
Great. Thank you, James. I want everybody to sit and take a couple of seconds to think about a good article you recently read, if that was in a newspaper or a journal, a magazine, and what elements that it had that caught your interest or kept you reading through. I'll talk about myself. I really love journalistic writing, and so when I read, I pick up magazines pretty frequently, lots of music magazines, entertainment magazines. I love sort of the edge that comes with journalistic writing of being able to interject personality and sometimes a little sarcasm, which I really appreciate as well. And so when I can read an article where I can get a sense that the person has really bought into their subject, and so they really get what they're writing about, they're passionate about it, and you can sort of see them as they write getting excited about the things that they talk about. For me, that really constitutes a good article. And that also comes in concert with good research and understanding your facts and knowing, what you're writing about. But if you're really connected to a story and you're really connected to an article that you're writing, I think for me that really sort of gives me, so I get that sense and I'm able to read on and kind of take a walk with the author. So I want you to think about that. But I think broadly, if we think about some of the technical things that broadly suit, good article writing, first and foremost, keeping your readers engaged and interested. And I think that, in particular, our membership does a really great job when they write articles of writing about things that obviously are very well catered to our profession. And so typically there's good stuff in there. I think it's a matter of also considering, how long your article is, what journey do you take your reader on, and how well do you make your point so that, by the end it's very clear, what you accomplished something through your article and that you met goals and things like that as well. I really wanted to present information, opinions, or a story, and as Kyle mentioned before, I think that our publication is a little bit different than others in the sense that I think we really encourage that storytelling to happen. So we take a lot of personal reflection pieces and personal observations or opinion pieces and accept those as something that's really valuable. I think we put a lot of value into our memberships, knowledge and experience and some of the things that they learn about. And so for trends, and I think for the talking stick too, some of those reflection pieces are really compelling for us to read. It's connected to the reader on a personal level. People want to read stuff that they care about. I don't know if you've ever been on sites like CNN or things like that where you look at news stories and you look down to the comments, and some people are very passionate about what they write. Others are, I don't really care about this. So the most effective conversations that you can have about an article and what keeps you talking about it later on is the fact that it's somehow connected to you. We obviously want them to be pertinent to the objective of the publication. We've received articles in the past that have talked about, we really want to write about pop culture and how, that shapes our environment. But, we really don't have an idea about how to connect that to housing or to residence life. And I think it's important that regardless of what you write about, that you're not just writing about a subject to write about a subject, that you have to connect it somehow to the people in your audience that are actually reading it. Have an attention-seeking title. I get lots of no-name articles for trends, so oftentimes I have to look for crafty titles to put in there, and sometimes that means doing a play on words. Sometimes it's alliteration, making the consonants all sound the same. Doing rhymes once in a while works well, things like that. So it's about having that one little piece of wording at the top of your article that people look at and say, oh, that could really be interesting. So making sure that you put some thought into that, I think is really important. I think it's really incredibly important to have a defined structure and a flow. And I've seen many articles, not just in our publications, but everywhere else, where somebody will be talking about something, and there's very stream of consciousness writing. And so you'll notice that lots of journalistic articles or things that you find in our publications have a defined introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And sometimes even within those, the bodies of publications, you'll see in different articles that they're broken up into sections, and so that you're separating out the ideas. And I think that can be really important in helping people to understand the main points of your article and to walk away with the desired information. We'll talk about this more as well, but good grammar, spelling, and format are really critical. And I think that when you read articles that don't exhibit those things, I think it sort of ruins the credibility, and I think it ruins the experience for your readers. So I think those are things to keep in mind for sure. We also want to talk a little bit about GLACUHO publications, and GLACUHO has, as you know, has probably revamped a good chunk of our publications, and we've tried some different things in the past few years. A few things have worked super, super well. A few things have not. But the purpose of us having our publications is to communicate the value of GLACUHO to our membership. And I would say even secondary to that is that we also want to reflect back the good work that our organization does. So some of our goals when we sat down 2 years ago when the Communications and Marketing Committee was actually formed in our new committee structure, we wanted to develop quality publications that, again, show the work of our profession, that parallel the really great work. We have a strong, strong organization that we belong to, and I'm sure all of you are aware of that. So we wanted our publications to match the quality of that stuff that was happening at the campus and regional level as well. We wanted flexible and timely communication, and we've changed that a little bit. Most of you may have remembered a couple of years ago we had a publication called Waves, which we ended up putting to bed this past year in lieu of the information that's now coming out of our state listservs. But we wanted to have different ways in which we were connecting with our membership and providing information and ensuring that there was a timely manner in which that all was being delivered. And so that was really intentional when we sat down and planned a revamp of Trends. It used to be published 3 times a year, and now it's a quarterly magazine to sort of lessen the gaps in between issues. And that's meant a lot more work for us, but we're excited about that fact that we get a chance to communicate on a more regular basis. We really wanted to seek a diversity of information and articles that appeal to all levels of professionals. And we're hoping that when people pick up a copy of Trends, and I think that the goal is very much the same for the ACUHO-I talking stick as well, that no matter where you work in the housing profession, that every issue you pick up of one of our publications has something in it that applies to you, that you can look at and relate to and understand what that means. So we've tried to work very hard to ensure that we have that broad perspective from lots of different levels and facets of our profession. And we also wanted to create a unique professional development opportunity for members. We wanted it to be high quality, but we wanted it to be less selective than possibly writing for a journal and things like that as well. So we wanted to be able to welcome articles from graduate students all the way up through chief housing officers and senior housing officers. So we wanted everybody to have access to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. And Kyle is going to talk a little briefly about Trends.
Sure. As Grant said, Trends is our quarterly news magazine for GLACUHO. Trends kind of serves a couple different purposes within it. It really is a great way to connect with the association. By reading Trends, you can see what kind of things have been happening around the region over the past couple months, and it also alerts you to upcoming opportunities within our organization to take advantage of. But in addition to kind of the GLACUHO news and what's happening around there are a lot of developmental articles included in Trends. Some of these articles are research-based or experience-based, or we talked a little bit about how there may be reflection pieces from different things that our members have experienced to articles on current trends and things of that nature. So Trends is a kind of a multifaceted magazine in a lot of ways, which is great because that means that if you have a good, well-developed idea for an article that you want to write, it can probably find a home in our magazine. We want to talk a little bit about the basic guidelines for writing for Trends. And some of those are that when you write for Trends, it be housing or residence life focused. Grant touched on this a little bit earlier, but because that's the purpose of GLACUHO, all of our articles do need to relate back to housing or residence life in some form or fashion. So for example, if you really want to write about first-generation college students, that's a wonderful topic, but first-generation college students and what, how they're adjusting to housing or how they can be supported, et cetera. So making sure that it is kind of coming back to kind of housing and or residence life. Another basic guideline that we have for writing for Trends is that submitters are submitting their own original work, meaning that they've written the work, or if they have utilized different sources for reference, that they're citing those appropriately and ethically to make sure that we are kind of only reworking things with permission. A great basic guideline when you're submitting to Trends or any other article, or an article to any other publication like The Talking Stick, is that you do some self-editing and some proofreading before. If that's not your forte, I would also send your article to someone you trust in your department or a professional colleague that's willing to look it over for you and potentially make some edits. That self-editing process is really important before it gets to that submission state. A great thing to keep in mind when you write is to be accessible. Think about what is your internal language that you're using on your campus that maybe a reader on another campus may not understand. We all work in different types of positions and in different systems and different setups, and so making sure that your article is accessible to the different folks in our region and also with different levels of experience will make your article that much more accessible to your reader. And then lastly, we want to make sure that all of the articles that are submitted to Trends are appropriate. Trends is a place to find out about new ideas and new things going on in the region, but all articles do need to be appropriate and non-inflammatory. So with those basic guidelines, James is going to talk to us a little bit about how we make an idea work when we have an idea to write about.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we're at the proverbial right at the end of the tunnel here. We're ready to put, I was going to say pen to paper, but that's old-fashioned. We're ready to grab the keyboard and start working on our story. So what does it take to make this idea work? Well, I think the very first thing that you're going to want to consider is know the magazine or the publication that you're looking to write for, and then also the audience for that publication. Because once you know the audience and the publication you're looking for, that's going to affect both the topic that you write about, how you're going to write about that topic, and the voice you're going to use. For example, I'll use the talking stick for an example. If, again, we position ourselves as the authoritative resource for campus housing, and to that end, we have divided the magazine into different departments such as facilities, res life, academic initiatives, et cetera, that are supposed to run parallel with the structure of many housing offices, so that anybody, regardless of what area of housing that they may focus in, when they pick up a copy of the talking stick, they're going to be able to find a story that applies to their world. And to that end, we look for the articles to contain information that a reader can take that and then pull the information, pull some tips out of that, and be able to apply it to their work. We want it to be not necessarily a how-to article, but articles that are going to provide some good actionable material. At the same time, we have the blog, which the stories that appear on the blog tend to be more timely, things that are happening right now, of a particular newsworthiness. That's also where there's more of a room for reflection or opinion to go into those than what might necessarily happen in a talking stick story. And then, as a third point, you have your journal articles, which are much more scholarly. They have the parenthetical references and a lot of charts and graphs filled with great, valuable information, but it might not have that sort of how-to aspect of it that you would see in a talking stick article. So again, different topics fit in different areas, different voices go along with that as well. And on an earlier slide, we had mentioned avoiding the what I did on my summer vacation story, which I admit is a slightly snarky term, but generally we use that to think of when it comes time to craft an article, we wanted to be able to show how it applies to the profession as a whole, and is not simply just writing about something that maybe is happening on one particular campus. Now, that's not to say that what is happening on one particular campus couldn't be an example of something that is happening on a broader scale across the profession. So again, we would want the article to discuss the broader implications and then use what is happening on one particular campus as a means to illustrate that broader trend. So taking that idea that we've walked through, coming up with an idea, some of the guidelines for being published, starting to craft the idea into an actual working story idea, we want to take a few minutes and open up the floor, as it were, to you, the audience, to do some brainstorming. So on this next slide here, we have a few sort of feeders to get your creative juices flowing. What we're going to ask people to do is to submit these through the GoToWebinar interface. If you're there by yourself, just start jotting them down. If you're within a group, please feel free to share your ideas and enter them here. And then also, you can see what other people are thinking of as story ideas. Maybe that spurs something in your brain to think of an idea. But we're going to take about 3 to 5 minutes, and we're hoping that everybody can just start the proverbial brain dump here to share your ideas. There are no bad ideas. And this will be very awkward because my only feedback is going to be watching the screen to see what gets typed in. Can't pick up on any nonverbals.
The window that you're going to want to use to enter in your the window you're going to want to use is the chat window down below. So if you look down on the interface, the window, there should be a chat box, and that's where we can enter everything in. Make sure that the whole audience can see them, and if you enter them there, we'll be able to catch them.
Let's throw out some categories, try and spur story ideas. What's a story idea?
I just got one here, Matt Bloomingdale. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. Engaging in upper division students in residence hall communities. Great one.
Think about questions that you have as a professional, because odds are other people have those same concerns and questions as well.
And I think the engagement in upper class communities is a good one, Matt. I think that was a great point. I think you could focus that even further. Many of our students at Miami University live in suite style accommodations, and so providing strategies in which people can engage with students who live in suite style accommodations, and how do you program, how do you engage students, how do you build a relationship. I think that some of those questions could be asked for that too. So I think that's a really solid one. We've got another one here, Stacy. Generational relations in residence life.
Is that meaning within staff, within the residents themselves? Where are the generational relationships taking place? That would be the question that I would ask.
And then Matthew said another one again here, recovering your reputation, coming back from professional missteps. That's a great one.
That's a very good one. Grant and I promise not to fight over the really good story ideas for our respective publications.
Staff and student relationship. Colleagues and peers, asking them what they want to know more about. Ellen, how to engage men in residence halls in a constructive manner. Okay, great.
Very hot topic. Actually will be the focus of an upcoming ACUHO-I journal, special themed issue.
Perfect. Stacy Oliver, thank you. Partnering with athletics to support student athletes in residence. That's a fantastic one. We are recording these, by the way, so if you suggested these, we would love to engage you at some point in the future to possibly write for these particular subjects. So if you're the one who has suggested these and you are wanting to write, then please let James or I know, and we can certainly help you with that. Okay, Stacy F. came up with another one that said, building effective communities in university apartments. Good.
That is a good one. Helping people recognize the differences between apartment style and more, quote, traditional, unquote, residence halls and what that means. Very good idea.
Absolutely. Ellen Eng came up with another one, engaging faculty in living learning communities. Excellent topic, one that I think many institutions are tackling right now. And actually, we have a lot of staff that end up going to the ACUHO-I Living Learning Communities Conference, and I would love, especially for our regional publication, to see some articles written about those experiences and what happens at the conference. I think that would be fantastic. We haven't really had those from some of those, the focus conferences that ACUHO-I has. We have lots coming back from the annual conference, but I think that's good. Stacy Oliver said Auxiliary 101. What it means to stand alone fiscally.
We find that those types of articles, fiscally related, business related ones, are fantastic topics because that's not necessarily something that gets a whole lot of coverage while you're in your graduate program, but when you get into the day-to-day work and as you work your way through housing operations, it becomes more and more important. So it's a fantastic way to transmit that knowledge and information.
Carrie from Ball State, how to engage non-LLC students in the community. Excellent. We actually struggle with that at Miami quite a bit in the sense that all of our living learning communities are considered residence halls, but not all LLCs are created equally. So that's a great one that I think could be useful for lots of different schools. Matt Bloomingdale, you're on a roll today, Matt. Utilizing social media as a new professional, not getting off on the wrong tweet. I like that.
He's even got the headline. Fantastic.
You even thought of a catchy title. Great.
Yeah. That's actually the hardest part. Once you write the headline, everything else falls into place.
Okay, we'll sort of take a last call. Perfect here. Developing and implementing a residential curriculum from Ellen. Great. There are lots of schools currently who are looking to do that, and we have a few schools in our region. Northern Illinois, I know Miami has a residential curriculum, and I think a few others are pursuing that concept or have had it for a few years. So I think that could be a really useful thing for other schools who might be looking to follow in the same vein. So really good. Okay, we'll take a last call for just one or two more. We love the ideas, and so what we want you to do is if you have any more to contribute, we'll have a Q&A period at the end of the webinar that we can use for that, or you can also email James and myself. We'll have that information. That information is on the webinar invite that you got, so you can feel free to email your ideas as well. Okay, Perfect. Well, thank you for those contributions, everybody. I love to do some of those brainstorming things because it really helps me as the editor to sort of get a sense of what people are looking to read about, and the better that we can cater our publications to the membership and what really they want to learn about, that makes it more relevant and it makes our content a lot better. So even if you're not thinking of stuff now, please let us know at any point in the future some of these things that you would love for us to pursue. And we love being able to go out to different experts and people who are involved in different topics in our association and trying to find out who might be willing to write about some of these topics. So good stuff.
I would also encourage everyone that if you are a presenter at one of the conferences, again, either the ACUHO-I conference or at one of the regional conferences, and many times your presentation can become an article as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for that. We appreciate your ideas very, very much. We know it's an awkward sort of a way to exchange information, so we thank you for bearing with us and helping us do that. We really wanted to get that stuff in writing because it's important for us to take back with us after the webinar, so thank you for that. And Kyle's going to talk a little bit about, now that you've gotten some of those ideas, what next?
Yeah, we just had a short list of things to keep in mind when you are submitting articles for consideration. One of the things to know is that not every article is accepted for publications. Sometimes those articles might come back to you with some opportunity to revise them, but sometimes they may not be quite the right article for the publication that you've submitted it for. So if you submit, for example, a really scholarly, statistically heavy kind of article, it might be more well-suited for a journal than a magazine. And so we will kind of edit through some of those in case it's not really the appropriate type of article for our publication. Something else to know is you might write a fantastic article, but it may not be used immediately. So for example, if you were to submit right now an article about revolutionizing the move-in process at colleges around the country, that would be a groundbreaking article. But we might save that for, a spring publication or a summer publication when it more aligns with the time of the year, or potentially a themed publication that might be coming up. Something else to remember is the Communications and Marketing Committee is always willing to help in any way that we can, whether that's helping to develop an idea, provide feedback about pieces that have been submitted. We would love for the membership to really utilize this committee in that way, and to help foster more articles to come from the membership. A couple other just tiny things that we may have to edit for length or content at times. Our publications are so long, and we will need to fit stories in a manner that they can all fit, and we give everything its due. So for that purpose, we may need to edit at some points. And we always ask that you send any photos or graphics that you would like to have used with your story. That will save Grant some time from hunting around for stock photos that fit the content that you're looking for. So those are some things to keep in mind.
I wanted to talk a little bit about our submission process. I know that a few of the folks who are attending the webinar have written for us before, and I thank you very much for that. So first and foremost, the Communications and Marketing Chair is supposed to be leaving in about a month or so, and it's been a wonderful experience. So I thank everybody for allowing me to do that. So anytime you have questions or comments or issues with any of our publications, we now have a static email address, trends@glacuho.org. So that way it travels in between communications and marketing chairs and stays consistent. So that's always the place now where we're going to be receiving emails about GLACUHO publications, and I would love for you to be able to use it. Articles are due on the 25th day of the month in advance of the publication. That gives the chair about a week or so to piece together the articles and flow them into a layout. And that's a very time-consuming process and is very involved. we use InDesign, which is an Adobe product, and it's kind of intricate. So it produces great work, but we also have to put the time and energy into it to make sure that everything fits well and looks right. So that's why we don't give up until the last day to be able to submit any articles or things like that as well. Trends is published 4 times a year, as we mentioned before. And they coincide with major happenings in both GLACUHO and ACUHO-I. In March, obviously, we would have just been finishing up our winter meeting at Camp Tecumseh in February, with most of our committees being selected and working actively. So we utilize March as a time that also just slightly precedes our recruitment season. So we really like to utilize that issue to advertise different things going on at Oshkosh Placement Exchange, NASPA Placement Exchange, and also ACPA, if at all possible. So that's sort of the crux of the March issue. July happens obviously during the summer, and that's the precursor to often the annual conference for ACUHO-I, annual conference and exposition that happens every year. We also utilize that as sort of a precursor to campus move-in and things like that. So Kyle mentioned an article about revolutionizing the move-in process, and so that would be one of the best issues to include that in. October obviously precedes our annual conference for GLACUHO, and we utilize that to communicate information out to the membership that prepares them to attend that conference. And then December is our wrap-up for the annual conference, and then also is the first issue that's released after our elected positions and our appointed positions are in office. So it's a little bit of a scattered schedule, but we do it for that purpose just because we want to highlight some of those important times of the year for all of us. When you submit an article, I tend to review it very briefly. Typically, I don't have a lot of work to do for that. I sort of edit as I go, if I need to make small changes and things like that as well. The thing that's important to understand that once you submit an article to us, we don't want to say that we own it, but we need at some point to take a little bit of license to edit and things like that as well. So if we see grammatical errors, or if we just think a sentence would fit better, or if we have to edit for length or content, as Kyle mentioned before, we have to be able to take the liberty to be able to do that. So I'm hoping that people recognize when they submit their articles for publication, that's what we have to do. Also, it's really important to include credits, names, titles of the writers, email addresses, your institution names, and things like that as well. We like to be able to give credit where credit's due, and having that information really helps us out quite a bit. Okay, well, I want to open up the floor for any questions that people might have. So if you have a question for us or would like to make a comment or anything like that, if you could press the raise your hand button. It looks like, you know, a little hand. If you could press that button, we'll get to you, and we'll unmute you so that you can have the ability to speak through either using your telephone or microphone or whatever. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. No questions. Okay. Well, thank you very much for attending today. A couple of things that I wanted to point your attention to is first and foremost that we will be releasing a new issue of Trends on October 1st, thereabouts. It'll probably make it to the website probably October 3rd or 4th, depending on how quickly we get everything edited, but definitely in time to do a preview for the annual conference. So I've gotten lots of great articles and information in from all sorts of folks in our profession. So thank you so much to everybody who contributed, and we hope you look forward to reading that when it comes out. Also, our committee is going to be looking for new members coming up in this next year. So as we near the annual conference, there'll be an opportunity to volunteer for committees. Our committee obviously works on various initiatives, including Trends, but also different pieces of marketing and communication that happen throughout the year that benefit our committees on behalf of the tri-presidents and the executive board, our partners and exhibitors that work with us to sponsor different events that GLACUHO has. So there's lots of opportunity to become engaged. And so if this is something that you'd like to do on a volunteer basis, we would love to be able to talk about it with you. So if you have any questions or things like that, myself or any member of our committee can answer and talk with you about what the experience is like. And then finally, our next issue of Trends will be coming out on December 1st. as a wrap-up to the annual conference. And so as you're going to the annual conference, or as the rest of your semester carries on, if you have things that are, have meant a lot to you or that impact you greatly and you'd like to share them, we'd love to see lots of articles and written pieces that we can include in the next issue. So keep that in mind as you're going through the next couple of months and whatever you're doing, and we would love to be able to see something that you have to write. And the ideas you generate today are a really great start, so we appreciate that.
Thanks, Grant. Great presentation today. I just have one closing announcement on behalf of the organization. As you know, the annual conference is coming up, and the early bird registration deadline is Friday, October 14th. So be sure that your registration is submitted, and if you're paying by check, you're postmarked by the 14th. We also have just a couple more seats open in the Multicultural Competencies Institute. You can register that in the same way that you registered for the conference. Thanks again, everyone, for your attention today, and we will be posting the archived recording of this presentation on the website tomorrow. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.